In today's show, this is slightly different to our normal TNT TalkShow format because Theo and I attended a UFO Expo in Manchester, England. And we had the opportunity to sit through a number of presentations. So we reviewed some of those presentations during this show. And we also had the good fortune to interview some of the speakers. So please enjoy this new format and we hope you like it.
And now, the TNT Talk Show, daring to go where other podcasts fear to tread.
Hello, and we're at the UFO conference once again. You can't see me, I'm off camera, but you can hear me. But we've got Theo Chalmers here with Theo, and Theo was going to ask him a couple of questions regarding UFOs. Do you want to go first?
Well, I would say a little bit more because we've got an important guest there.
Well, he is an important guest. Theo is... Well, this is what I was going to say. How would you describe yourself to our audience? Because some people may not know you.
I suppose really probably more like a journalist or a television presenter than anything else. I did have a long-running TV show on Sky Channel 200 on Edge Media TV originally it was called On the Edge, and now that one ended, and then I started another one called One Step Beyond. And I've also done a radio show as well. But and I presented one of these Awakenings. I was the MC for the Awakening Expo in Blackpool last year. So I'm very interested in a lot of these topics, not just about UFOs, but a lot of alternative topics like who's running the world, and it might not be aliens. It might be some evil men.
What, cabal?
Yes,
we've touched on that on a previous show, but
but there is no doubt that there is an enormous amount of power in a very few hands.
Do you think?
And is that why?
Do you think that's
true?
I'm
certain of that. I'm absolutely certain that there's a lot of power in a very few hands. I think that's pretty well established fact. Whether you get to see who these people are very often. I mean, for instance, when the Sunday Times does its wealthiest men in Europe or whatever list, these people's names do not appear because they like to remain in the background. It's like,
Are you sure we're not? Where's the evidence for this? This is the thing.
Well, there's plenty of evidence. I mean, there is this is not in dispute that there are a few families that control the world. But is it possible that they are themselves controlled by others who are even more secretive and behind the scenes? It's like behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz, isn't it?
I think we might be getting away from the UFO aspect because I love what we're talking about, and hopefully we can do a proper show one day with you on and talk about these conspiracy theories because that's what we do. That's what we do. We love conspiracy theories.
Me too.
But here in this venue, at this venue, concerning UFOs, what I'd like to know from you is this. What I'd like to ask all the people here. That's what I want to ask them individually. What is the strongest evidence as far as you are concerned? What has convinced you? What is the one piece of evidence that you say, okay, Theo, because of this, I believe in UFOs?
Okay. Well, I think you need to start with the numbers, don't you? Because we've now established that with our telescopes that there are planets going around most of the stars in our proximity that we can see. As they pass over the face of the star, the light changes and you can go, oh, there's a planet there. Now, we know that there are more stars in our own galaxy, our home galaxy, than there are grains of sand on our beaches on this planet. And that's just one galaxy. We also now know, thanks to space telescopes, James Webb and Hubble, that there are trillions and trillions and trillions of galaxies. And each one of those trillions of galaxies has got trillions of stars, and each of those trillions of stars almost certainly has planets, and many, many, many of those planets must be in the Goldilocks zone. which is the zone where life can develop. And we have some indications that there is life on asteroids passing nearby and so on. There's evidence that there have even been civilizations on Mars and potentially other planets in our solar system. So there's a pretty good chance that life is a universal phenomenon. And therefore, some of that life surely must be intelligent. Now, whether they can travel across the vastness of space, and they would have to learn how to do it faster than the speed of light, it's almost certain. But it may be they can do it by folding up space and jumping across or something, or going through wormholes or black holes, or who knows, maybe they can do it. So it's only a maybe.
Yeah.
You know, there is no cast iron proof, and yet there is so much circumstantial evidence of alien contact in the past, going back, thousands of years.
Exactly.
I mean, people like the Dogon tribe in West Africa, for instance, who have knowledge of a certain star system of
yes.
and binary
really
star. A
they
binary star.
shouldn't.
How would they know about
Yeah.
a binary star, for instance? And yet they do.
Do you think that they were told this, so they were visited by off-worldly creatures and partake their information to them? But what did they make of it? What could they have made?
Well, yeah, I think they were visited. I think lots of our previous societies on this planet have been visited by alien species, and of course, it could well be that if it is possible to travel these vast distances in a reasonable amount of time, then it's quite likely that more than one civilization has come here, and some of them may hold back and not contact beings on primitive planets, but it could be that other civilizations think, yeah, why not? Let's go down and give them a thrill, Or let's use them as slaves to find gold for us.
Or as Douglas
whatever.
Adams wrote, it's just a couple of teenagers mucking around. That's what a couple of alien teenagers mucking around.
It could be, couldn't it? It could be. I mean, we could be all, the subjects of a university student's degree program, and he's written a simulation.
I'm with you on
and
this,
we're all
actually.
in a simulation, and therefore any of these things could be. Let's put in aliens in the simulation. Let's do this. Let's throw them a few, curveballs. See how they handle it psychologically. But they think they exist. And when I break for summer, I'm going to turn it off.
Do you know
when
what?
I finish my degree course, I'm going to turn the whole damn thing off.
Out of all the theories, that actually, to me, holds the most truth. Because, let's be honest, unless aliens, for instance, have developed these technologies that can get them here in double quick time, why would you send your physical self? You wouldn't. You'd send something like us humans. We're going to the moon. We're not sending ourselves. We're sending.
Well, they
boats.
lied that we sent ourselves in,
No, okay,
in
but that's a separate
1969,
topic.
70, and 71,
But
didn't we?
you don't-
We
don't
lied
you
that
believe-
12 people landed on the moon, but of course, it is a lie. And absolutely. And of course, one day, NASA will have to admit that it was,
It was a lie. Do you know what?
And
I'm
then-
with you as well. Tayo is one convinced that
What,
we
you think they
been
went?
to the
Oh, please.
Yes.
Have you not looked at the evidence?
Well, the
Well, we
evidence
have
is,
looked at
we
it. The
have been
evidence
there.
is
We've
good.
got rocks. We've got stuff. So we have been
We
there.
haven't got
but
rocks.
Not humans.
Well, actually, the
Humans-
Russians have got rocks, and they shared them with the Americans, so they know what they would be like. Yes, the Russians sent a mission to the moon, a robotic mission to the moon, that scraped up a few bits of rock and stone,
Americans
and
have
came
as well,
home.
though. Americans have done.
Well, I'm not sure that they did actually. I don't think there's any evidence that they sent a mission just to pick up rocks without the human. But it's quite clear. Werner von Braun went to Antarctica before 1969, in 1968, I think, because meteorites are all over the snow and you can spot them easily. It doesn't snow very often in Antarctica. Some parts of Antarctica hardly ever snows, and yet there is snow on the ground. So if meteorites are landing,
You can find it.
you can find them and you can pick those up and go, oh, here we go, these can be our moon rocks, we've got them in our pocket, thanks very much. So they've got moon rock.
Why
And
wouldn't
they
the
gave one bit.
Soviets-
They gave the country of Norway. They gave a moon rock to, didn't they? It was officially given to the country of Norway as a moon rock, and they had it analysed. It was petrified wood.
Oh no! Oh dear! I hadn't heard about that.
That's crazy.
But wouldn't the Soviets have known that
Yes, but the
the
Soviets
Americans?
were faking it. Yuri Gagarin wasn't the first man
No,
in
I'm
space.
saying, wouldn't the Soviets have known that America didn't land on
Yes,
the moon?
and they had a deal. The Russians were getting grain from America when they had a famine at about that time. And also, they played the game. The game in politics was you scrub our back, we'll scrub yours, you know. So,
That would explain the Russian-Ukraine war. And what the hell is going on? Because that war doesn't make any sense.
The Russians were doing the same. They lied. Like I say, Yuri Gagarin, that film of him getting in his spaceship and stuff is clearly bullshit, you know. So they'd already put a man in space days before the so-called Yuri Gagarin first man in space. So it wasn't even him.
I don't personally believe we've been to the moon, man have been to the moon. Even now, NASA are treating this expedition, looking at it, as if they've never done it before. You can see even now. So why wouldn't they repurpose all the knowledge that they gained first time?
They said they destroyed it.
How would they destroy it?
Destroy it? That's just the
If you
biggest
want evidence.
excuse.
That's
It's the worst excuse ever. They've destroyed. Come on.
There's a brilliant website called owlis.com, AULIS. It's got all the evidence on it.
AULIS.
AULIS.com. It's got all the evidence on it about the fake moon, and you can look at there's people who can use the images to work out how far away things are by, if you've got two photographs that are taken within a few feet of each other, and you can analyse how far away your backdrop is, you know.
Yeah.
And it's all evidence like that, and where all the shadows are obviously coming from artificial lighting. There's so much evidence, it's endless. Or where they're hitting something with a hammer, and you can hear it in a vacuum. You can hear it. You know.
We will look at that. That's actually quite fascinating because you're now backing up my case.
When Apollo 17, the last one, took off from the surface of the moon, the LEM took off. First of all, there's a sort of explosion thing, but there's no like massive trail of fire and everything underneath it. But most importantly is that the camera follows it up. Now, apparently, they didn't leave a cameraman on the moon, you know. Now, the NASA claim, of course, that it was directed from Earth. Well, there's a time delay. How the hell do you know?
Is that what they said?
Very precise
How the hell do you
They said
find that film?
Is that true? They said
Absolutely.
that I didn't
they
hear
did
that
it
one
remotely
before.
controlled from Earth.
Oh dear.
We
They've
had the
dug a bigger
countdown,
hole.
and we thought, well, it should be.
They've dug a bigger
It's
hole.
only a quarter. It's only a quarter-second delay.
Yeah,
It's only a quarter-second delay.
Yeah, but
No, it's only a quarter-second. So you know, I mean, you can
could
do it.
quite.
and also when Nixon from the White House was patched into Apollo 11 on the surface of the moon, there was no delay. He was going, "Hi, Neil," and Buzz.
But actually, there is a delay because I'll tell you why. When you have communications to a geostationary satellite, that's 17,000 miles up above the Earth. There's a delay when you're communicating. Even now,
I don't
because
think they're that high. I'm sorry, I think you've got that number wrong.
Well, I don't know.
I don't think they're 17,000 miles.
Well, that's
high.
nowhere near what the moon is. The moon is 300 and something.
Yeah, it's now 65,000 miles.
So
Yeah.
the thing is, if there's a delay
Of course
in a
there is.
geostationary
Even at the speed of light, there's a big
satellite,
delay, yeah.
So to get to the moon and back, I think that quarter second that you're referring to is probably a bit too quick.
And then you've got all the evidence of the Van Allen belts that they knew were deadly poisonous for humans because of the radiation.
And the
So
suits
much
were
so
thick.
that both the Americans and the Russians set off a nuclear weapon in the Van Allen belts to blow a hole in them. The American effort was called Operation Starfish Prime, and they set off a nuclear weapon in the Van Allen belts to clear a way through for Apollo, and it made it worse. It made it more, if possible, even more radioactive. The evidence is all out there. The whole thing is a crock of shit.
Why would you? Why? Coming back, I'm going. I don't know. Bringing us back to the alien thing. My second and final question: Why would governments want to not disclose the presence of aliens? What's the problem? Why
The presence
I don't
of
see the
aliens.
problem.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a very good question, isn't it?
Or the existence of aliens.
It's about the business that they're in, which is nothing to do with looking after our best interests. The business that all governments are in is called control. And you keep people ignorant, you can tell them what you like when you like to control them. And so you're not going to go, oh, look, because everything gets thrown in the air. If they have to say, yes, space is full of civilizations, some of whom visit us, and we've already known this for like 80, 100 years, we've had meetings with them, different species, which has to be true if that is true.
It undermines them completely.
It undermines them completely, and it means that eventually they will all be overthrown because what they're doing is evil and wrong. And also the aliens will say, well, we don't have a problem with power. We have infinite free power for our lives, to run our lives and heat our homes and drive our cars and whatever. So, all of the things that they're relying on to tax us and control us and make us their subjects with less and less freedom, which they are doing inexorably, would be taken away. So that is why they would never willingly tell us, unless there is so much evidence that they can no longer deny it. And it is getting a bit to that point.
Could there also be that the governments, to some degree, want to share that they've met with off-worldly beings, but the aliens themselves are saying, it's like Star Trek, Prime Directive, they're saying, look, we advise you not to tell your populations because of X, Y and Z. So could there be an element of that?
Well, yeah, I mean, we can't know the agenda of these alien species, can we? So it could be that some of them are genuinely friendly, genuinely concerned about our best interests. I find that somewhat unlikely. It could be that some of them just want to exploit us.
What, couldn't they have wiped us out already then?
Absolutely, but maybe they like us to be alive. Maybe, I mean, look at animal mutilations, for instance, which happen all the time, which are often shut down as evidence by governments all around the world, where cattle and sheep and even seals and dolphins are mutilated, but also humans have been mutilated and murdered in the same way in some places, and that is a big dark secret. But I've seen photographs in places like Brazil of that kind of animal mutilation on humans. So who is doing that? These are creatures that have been taken off the earth, leaving not a trace. They've been desanguinated, and there's not a trace of blood, and there's no blood or any evidence of being attacked on the ground where their bodies are found, or up in trees. Cattle have been found. Cattle have been found. Yes, Skinwalker Ranch is one example, but cattle have been found in trees. So let's put him down on the ground. Oh, sorry, he's in a tree. Never mind, we'll bugger it off. We've got the bits we want. And what are they doing with those bits? Odd bits, like the genital area and like bits of the mouth and stuff. What the hell is going on?
So, are you aware of that? I call it an anomaly on the Skinwalker Ranch.
Yes, I've watched every episode of the Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah.
It's a wormhole.
What do you think of that? What do you think of that anomaly? And why isn't the government? Why isn't this more famous?
The people who did own Skinwalker Ranch were working for the government.
Yeah, they were.
The previous owners, Bigelow, that's right, Ron Bigelow, I think it was, wasn't it? He was working for or with the government. And the people who own it now, maybe less so, but there's government involvement in it all. I mean, who knows? It's like
there. You can
so
see
many
it.
things.
I mean, what the hell?
There's never an answer, though, is there? There's never a black and white answer. It's always just beyond reach. The answer. It's always just nearly there. It's weird as hell. Nearly there, but we never quite get our finger on it, do we?
But that could be because it's beyond our comprehension.
Well, we're asking the wrong questions in the wrong way.
Yeah.
I mean, like I say, if it is all a bloody simulation, then they're just having fun with us, aren't they?
We're in the game. We're in the game being unaware, because what makes the game real is that we're outside a simulation, we're playing the game. But in order to enjoy the game and make it lifelike, in quotes, we have to be detached from our real self outside the game. We're in the game playing it, unaware that we're in a game, until we finish the game, and then we come back out and go, oh yeah, I played that character.
Just like Jumanji.
Yes.
We're all in
The thing is,
Jumanji.
a lot of
the real experience.
a lot of these things seem to point down that road
Well,
because
that's the most frightening of all, isn't it? That it's all a simulation, that it's all a game. That's the most frightening. We'd like to think that we're real. We'd like to think that our consciousness is whole and can, pass on after our bodies give up.
that probably is real.
Well, is it though?
It's
If
the
you're writing
only
a simulation where we're self-aware in the simulation, and it must be a very sophisticated simulation, then that's all well and good. But if it is just a simulation and he's going home for Christmas or his summer holidays and turning us off,
I'm not sure it's quite that low. I think it is perhaps a experiment that we're trying out different things and making the game of life fun and intriguing, and you have to, in quotes, live the character but multiple ways, and it's just a way of self-satisfying our consciousness which lives beyond the realm of this
So our
simulation.
different characters that we adopt throughout our lives, and I don't doubt that is to some extent true, they're like, oh, you've died, you're back again,
Yeah.
do that bit again. Well,
Yeah.
there are people like Anthony Peake who talk about us living this eternal rebirth and living the same life over and over, and sometimes having memories of what happened last time you went through the same life at the same time with the same people. Oh, this is where the bullet comes through our windscreen, so duck. This is all stuff that he's. Anthony Peake, you should check him out. Peake. Well worth reading. Cheating the ferryman. Things like that.
Okay.
But his life that he talks about is repetitive. It's an endless repeat of
So
the same.
he's living the same life over and over, but he's remembering past lives.
I'm not saying that he is, but he writes about it as an experience, as a possibility of how the world works.
Can I ask you?
Yeah, go on.
Can I ask you to ask? Because I promised it was going to be short.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We'll try to get. We'll try to get.
I've used up all your time.
Yeah,
and
well, no,
space.
we're using up your time. Apologies.
Could I ask the last question? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
Do you think we're going to get a disclosure this year?
Only if something forces the hands of those who might make that disclosure.
Such as The Sound of Freedom.
Well, you're talking about that movie,
No,
but that's just about
that's a
paedophiles.
movie,
It's not really about
yeah.
aliens, is
It's
it?
not,
So,
It just depends who's in the paedophilic ring.
I'm sure that most governments are utterly corrupt in the most utterly disgraceful and disgusting ways. I have little doubt. If you want to be in power over people, you're probably already a psychopath.
That's rather harsh.
No, I think people who want to be in power, in control over other people, tend to be psychopaths. I think there's plenty of evidence. Maybe 3 or 4%.
If you want to
that's
be president, that in itself is enough evidence that you shouldn't be the president.
Exactly.
And the
Boris
fact that you
Johnson.
want
I think
to
you're
be.
doing the
Boris
human race
Johnson, as
too
a
big.
child, said, when asked what he wanted to be when he grew up, said, "I want to be king of the world." This is on the public record. I'm not
but
making
as
this
a
up.
child, you can sort of dismiss
as
things like that.
as a child
Indeed.
and as a man, he wanted to be king of the
He-
world,
he
didn't he?
wanted to have
And he
more
went
power.
some way toward achieving.
I'm not
that.
sure about everybody in power is some sycophant and having some. I mean, because when they start off, they have noble ideas to want to change things. So what? Everyone
Who's to
becomes
say they
corrupt.
have noble ideas.
That's what they say.
They tell you.
That's what they say
They
they
have
have.
noble ideas. I want to make a difference. That's their favourite, isn't it? They don't exactly say what that means. Or I make a promise until they're elected, and then all their promises are
all
torn up
gone.
and thrown over their shoulder.
there is an element.
Look at them. It doesn't matter which party it is. I'm not saying, it's the Conservatives who are arseholes, or it's the Labour Party who are arseholes, or it's the Liberal bloody Democrats who are arseholes, or worst of all, probably the Green Party who are arseholes. But I'm saying it's quite likely they're all arseholes, every single last one of them. And that's just the nature of this planet.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for your time.
Lovely
You've
speaking to
enjoyed
you.
Welcome.
chatting to us. We've loved having your insightful knowledge and you made it a
Such
great
as it
topic.
is.
Thank you
Anyway,
very
check
much.
out owlist.com.
We will
Yeah,
do.
I've already accessed it.
This is still on, isn't it?
This is still on.
Oh,
Okay.
God, please turn it off.
Yeah, we'll turn it off now. We've now got Derek Savory,
Yes, that's
who's
great.
joined us on the TNT Talk Show. Derek, you've got some interesting background on the Rendlesham incident, which we did a
Yeah.
previous show about.
We did.
Could you elaborate, Derek?
Yes, in 1980, I was a witness to a big ball of fire falling out of the sky, and it changed direction.
And when you say fall, did it literally fall? Or did it?
It was coming down.
Yeah.
And it was actually the next county in Essex, but it changed direction. When it came out of the sky, it suddenly changed direction, hung a right, and headed towards, for want of a better word, Rendlesham, across the river towards Rendlesham. And I rang up the newspaper because it shocked me what I'd seen, and you couldn't make it up. They said we've been inundated with phone calls, but in the paper they've got a little tiny bit about that big, and just said it was probably a meteorite or something falling out of the sky. And it did
There's
not
no
tell-
meteorite goes at a right angle.
Exactly. But since then, I now live near Rendlesham Forest. I do tours of Rendlesham Forest, and up till Christmas, I was doing healing there. Now, the healing side, you really need to listen to this, because listening to what they talk about the ancients and that, at Rendlesham Forest, near Eastgate, I found a site. It was UFO landings, 2 UFO landings 2 years before 1980. 2 friends of mine, when they found this spot, got radiation burns
Got radiation poisoning.
on the site.
Okay. Is this documented? The hospital approved
Yeah,
they've got radiation poisoning.
They still got burns. In fact, the
Wow.
woman's dog,
And it was from that location.
from that exact location,
Okay.
and not where the TV cameras show you. It's the other side of the runway. There's a narrative to go with Rendlesham Forest, which you probably already know. They send you to the other part of the forest, right near the runway, and you'll see a lot of programs coming out on it very shortly. But next to the runway, we used to take people to this site when I'd done the tours. What's happening is some people be in wheelchairs on crutches, and you can't say they can't join in. But in reality, you try pushing somebody through a forest, or even up a sandy lane, and it's not easy. And what was happening, we get to this particular point, they had to get out the wheelchairs. What was happening was, they suddenly started walking. I wouldn't say we're cured, but we're actually walking.
And they weren't able to walk before.
Partly, but not far. And they went from that to all of a sudden literally walking. And they said, we'll walk for a bit. Now, bear in mind, some of these people have been in wheelchairs for a long time. Anyway, we thought we hit on something here. Why are these people suddenly walking? And we carry on the tour. And over the course of time, a friend of mine, I said, look, bring your missus, because you've been in a wheelchair for a long time. I said, bring your missus to the forest, don't tell her why, and we'll take her to this spot and we'll try it. 6 times I took her there. So I'm a bit tearful when I tell this thing.
That's all right.
She's not in a wheelchair anymore.
What?
She's not with him either. That's irrelevant.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
she's not in a wheelchair anymore.
Because of that location.
Yes. I'll tell you what's a special location. It's what's underground. This same spot, every year, birds fly that little tiny bit of the forest, migrate there every year. Same place. When the forest is like 6-7 miles square, there's one little bit of the forest birds migrate to. By pure chance, I also happened to talk to a beekeeper, who's got beehives on the base and a line with it. And if you draw a line from where he's he said, well, if I put my beehives on that line, I get 3 times as much honey as anywhere else. He said, if I move the beehive, say 20 foot either way, the bees bugger off, or we don't got hardly any honey. And that's just another example.
So what's there? You say that there's something underground. What is underground?
It's a high energy spot. Now, over the course, when I started healing there, this first discovered this 10 years ago. To do it properly, I had to get qualifications, which I've got. I've got Reiki 1 and Reiki 2. So just so I've got a bit of paper so I can do healing. In reality, I do not use Reiki. I've got the keys to a portal, which is going to sound really strange to you. I think it's crazy, but bear with me. I had a set of keys that I lost, say 2-3 years ago, and I had which appeared in my drawer from nowhere. I've got a spearhead, a Roman spearhead. 2,000-year-old Roman spearhead, which appeared in my drawer. Don't know where from. Well, they went missing. As soon as I started healing again 2 years ago, they appeared in my drawer. And I asked Spirit why this was. They said the keys are symbolic, the keys to the portal. The spearhead represents your spirit destiny. And when I use the spearhead and hold it, I walk into this area and the portal comes alive.
What?
Now I've had groups.
When you say it comes alive, what do you mean?
Operates. I don't ask you why the healing works. Right. I'm able to heal them.
Okay.
It's not me that heal it.
Yeah,
What you have to do, say someone's in a wheelchair, they have to put their feet on the ground. And basically when their feet are on the ground, it drains all the negative energies out. And it rejuvenates to positive energies. And I personally, although I'm qualified in Reiki, I do not use Reiki. I ask the universe to send through to help those people, whatever's needed. Like, I'm a medium as well, but not the same league as we was. I don't sort of do one-to-one readings, but basically, if you're in the medium circle like I do, the head medium will speak to White Spirit. Yeah, that's how you do it basically. But I go straight to the universe, which then brings in your ETs and your aliens, if you like. The universe is a bigger area to get to, more stuff come through. So that's what I use. I ask the universe to help people. And up till last year I've done, when I say hundreds of people, but I had different groups from Glastonbury. They came up, 2 groups from Glastonbury, just to see if this was true. And it was. I had a group from Southend. They brought their best up. Just not to make it look silly, just to prove the point. And basically, supposing they've got 1,000 rods, for example, or electronic equipment, they can walk up this little pathway, nothing. I walk into it, it comes alive. Well, the 1,000 rods following me around, everything goes on. And I've had groups all over the place come to try this. Right?
Have you got people who can corroborate that they've been healed after speaking to you and being in this place?
Probably have. In actual fact, this week, the last couple I did, I'll have to just explain where, 2 weeks before Christmas, I had a lady who had multiple sclerosis. She was one of bed in a wheelchair in a bad state of affairs, and her husband contacted me and said, please can you try and see if you can help. So we took her to the forest. While we was there, in Rendlesham Forest, you have helicopters flying around, they do training there. Unfortunately, you imagine trying to heal someone when you've got a helicopter above it. So I said, oh, don't worry about them, I'm trying to bluff my way through it, so they're just training. And she sat in the wheelchair looking up and said, Dad, they're filming in there. And they were filming out the side of the helicopter.
They were filming
what I was doing.
You were doing?
Yeah. Then they shut me down. And they can prove this as well.
What do you mean shut you down? You can't now go back there?
Not that spot. I can still do healing, but not that spot.
Oh, really?
I'll tell you what has happened there. I got a message from a friend of mine that said, we've got a medium circle, spiritual circle. She said, we've got a message. So we sat around my house to these different mediums. The message come through that they're going to stop me healing there. Right?
So you were told before the official announcement?
And about a week or so after that, the forestry then posted up saying that they're going to farm that bit of forest. They do every bits of forest in it. So what happened was, literally overnight, it's fenced off. They've put where the path. I say that's the runway. Yeah. Beside that's a pathway beside the runway. They've got a big heap of soil there. They've got fences up, signs up, warning signs, blocked off every way to get to it.
So you now can't get to that energy area that you need.
But they've been digging holes. They're not farming the trees. They've been digging holes.
Try and find what's going on.
Yeah, basically. We wasn't supposed to find it, but we did by pure chance. But that lady and her husband, funny enough, we went to a medium event this week, just gone, and she was on. Now I've not seen or heard from him since then.
Wow.
She was in a wheelchair up to that point. She got out of the wheelchair. Her husband can't walk properly, but her husband walked up and she done platform, which is a medium giving out readings to the audience. And she stood for an hour. Now bear in mind, she was in a wheelchair. I'm not saying she's totally good, because obviously she is obviously really still ill. But
it certainly helped while she's there.
That's right.
I'd like to know as well, how long-lasting those effects are? Are they only good while you're there, so when she goes back to pack, or does it have a...
Well, in what I've learned, I've not got a booklet to go by, and I've got no one who else who does it to talk to.
Sure.
But what I've found is, if I could take them back more times, then I can get it to work better. Give another example. While I was there, I had a whole group of people, probably 10, 12 people, and one of the ladies was a carer. And she said, can I join in? And she comes from Africa. Anyway, so I said, yeah, come in. And she got this head thing on, which I didn't really understand what she was doing. It was a hot day, and I'm thinking, why are you wearing this? She said, no, it's a religious thing. Okay. Anyway, so I took this, so you joined in, so she joined in. And when I'd finished, she said, well, I've seen this done in 2 villages in Africa. I said, what do you mean? She said, what are you doing here? She said, what would normally happen was, the healer would go off somewhere, we know where we went, and then come back and was able to perform healing. She said, the only difference is you've done the whole lot in one specific spot. And for example, when I normally do healing in this spot, I'd ask for proof that I was doing it right. And how I do that is I've got a pendulum, a round chart, and I get yes, no answers. I always ask for something. One of the first times I'd done it, we walked away from the area onto the road, and a whole cloud of butterflies landed on us. That was just one example. Another time, I had a load of deer turn up, and they led us into that spot. They actually led us into the spot these deer.
So there's an attraction there from animals, because you said about the bees and
watch
other
the
deer.
animals. The key is watch animals. And also, my missus, she's probably gone there, she's one around here somewhere. I took her and some other Reiki healers there. All these mediums that I took are more qualified than me, I might add. They as high as you're going to get. Well, when we were there, I asked for a sign, and we had a lady in a wheelchair. I'd done my bit, which just kicked things off. We went to the other part of the forest, and we sat in a lady in a wheelchair, and they wanted to do Reiki to add to what I've already done. And I asked for a sign, when the wind gets up, you hear the wind blowing up outside the forest like a giant wave. And then just when they're finishing the Reiki, the wind blows through, blows all the bad energies away. So we've got one lady in a wheelchair, another one in a wheelchair, same again. Just when you finish it, the wind blows in and blows all these energies. Now, there's another bit to this I want to explain to you. There's a lady here, Marie Wheatley, who'll be speaking this weekend.
She's speaking there.
Right, well, I had a chat to her last year at the other Awakening conference, and she was explaining, and I agree entirely what she says. Suppose and say that thing there is an ancient monument. Outside of that, somewhere in that area, the elite would stand, and they stand on a certain spot like I've found, and they get charged up. That's a high energy area. So all the negatives would go out of them, and the positives would go into them, and they're able to go and perform healing and other strange stuff, shall I say.
Could this just be an area which has got a particular, an energy place, a magnetism, a bit like, like the Bermuda Triangle, which is a bit weird, that messes things up. Could this be a more localised area in Rendlesham where it has a beneficial effect to us? And is this what's attracting UFOs and things like that to that area?
Well, I said to Marie Wheat, I said, just a matter of interest, I said, do birds gather around any of these places? And she said, why do you ask that? So I told her about birds migrating that spot. She said, well, funny to say that, because one of these areas she went to, she was dowsing around outside the temple or whatever it was, and she said there was a group of these big birds all gathered in one area. And she asked the guide why they were there. That's when she learned about these sacred spots. And the guide said, I shouldn't really tell her this, but that's where the elite would stand. And all the birds, all these big tall birds, are gathered on this spot. And that's exactly what I found at Rendlesham. Now, if you multiply that, how many places like this around the world, and if you speak to certain people, just another example, I'm in a film, I was in a film called Cape of Green that comes out probably next month. Well, I was. I've been filmed for that. Might end up on the cutting room floor. But basically, what the guy the director said when he's filming me, he said, you need to speak to Andrew Collins of Ancient Aliens. I said, well, funny to say that. I'm seeing him next week. He said, what? I said, no, he's on his member of Self-In Group, and I'm going to see him next week. He said, well, Self-In Group and Andrew Collins specifically has put out that area that you're doing your healing in. He said, you need to have a chat to him. Well, I didn't have too long to speak to Andrew Collins. I said hello and told him what I was doing, but obviously he was
Too
book
busy.
signing and that. So anyway, but that is real. And I don't know how I could prove it to you apart from I could
know,
taste
that's
it.
Brilliant. He's got a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Come on.
You know that wheelchair lady? So the lady
Yeah.
that used to be in a wheelchair. She's not in a
Yeah.
wheelchair now. Is she still alive?
She is, yeah. That won't be built because that was with someone very close to me and she's not with him now. But I could get a whole list of people that I've done healing on.
Okay.
One of them's quite famous, her name's Brenda Butler. She's had 2 strokes. She was the original investigator in Rendlesham Forest incident in 1980. She's also a medium and a channeler, and she's taught me, I'd say, most of what I do. I've had loads of teachers.
But you cured her.
Not totally cured her, but yes. One
Improved
example
her.
I can speak to. For the first time she come to my house, and I've done this from my house, not from that spot, but I have done it twice at that spot. The first time I done healing on her, she come to my house and her feet were so swollen up she couldn't wear shoes. And that's one of the first times I've done the healing. So I've done the healing, and when she left, she didn't put her shoes on. Her feet were not swollen. And also,
Have you seen doctors? Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
What do the doctors say about this?
I've not spoke to any doctors, to be honest with you. It's just something I personally found, and all these different groups that have got wind of it have come along, and I've done it. I'm not saying anything special, it's just that what Spirit said to me, I'm a very spiritual person, and I sit in a circle every week in a spiritual church. And the funny is, I sit in circle and I can't do trance. If I go up on stage and do a talk, it's not me trance, it just comes through. It's amazing how it happens.
And so about this area has been blocked off now.
Yeah.
Sorry, who blocked it off again?
Well, the forestry are the ones that have put the signs up and the fences up. There was a military that was filming me just before they done that. And they were filming out their helicopter. In fact, I could speak to the people that were there that day, there's only 2 of them, and they'd be a witness to it.
So what are they going to do now that you don't have access any longer?
Well, here's the clever bit.
Sorry?
Here's the clever bit. Remember I told you about the artefact?
Yeah.
I've still got the artefact.
Still got it.
Now, 2.5 weeks ago, there was a film crew from Canada come down there, and there was a French journalist from obviously France, and one of the 1980 people from 1980 incident, a guy called Larry Warren, who's very controversial, but he was there with the camera crew. He contacted me and said, Del, these people are interested in what you're doing because they go all over the world. I couldn't even tell you who they were. Anyway, they turned up at the forest and we went round the forest, showed them around the forest. Midnight, and I've never ever done this before, not like how I've done this. They said, can you do something with Larry? Because Larry's not 100%. So we got back to the forest, right, and they were at the back of the car, in the middle of the car park, near Eastgate, when it's all kicked off. Middle of the night, 12 o'clock, in the pouring rain, I'm doing healing on them, right? They all want to see this, right? But I've got this Roman spearhead as a 2,000-year-old. I handed it to Larry, I said, hold that. I went through the intentions and how I do my stuff, and Spirit comes through and sort of basically telling me what to say. He held it. But the strangest thing happened though, it's never ever happened before. I felt myself, I was looking down at him. I mean, I'm only small, and he's about the same height. And I'm looking, I swear to God, I'm looking down at him, and I'm looking at the people like I was, not presuming it's the higher self, I don't know. I thought I'd turn into a giant. Do you know what I mean? I was looking, I'm not used to looking down at anybody, do you know what I mean? But I was right up looking down at him. And he stopped and filmed me that bit. He said, I don't want you to film it because it's private. But I did say some of the pictures. But the pictures, I was the same height, I was just normal. But when I was on the healing, honestly, I was like looking down on him. That's the really strangest feeling. I got him to hold the artefact. As long as I've got the artefact, I can do the healing. And what Spirit said, yes, that particular spot in the forest is important, but I've got the link to the portal. So where I go, that goes, the portal will open. But initially this started because of a high energy place. Now, slowly...
Should you really be talking about the healing? I'm sure we'll be prepared to not in healing.
Yeah.
Should you really be talking about the artifacts on camera?
Yeah.
Because
if I
Do
lost
you want
it,
us to use this or not?
we
you can. No, that's fine. Honestly, if the thing is, I'm doing, I say God's work. How shall I put this? I'm doing someone's work. I've lost it before. I've lost other stuff. I've got artifacts that just appear for me. You've heard of apports? Yeah. I've got apports as well.
what?
Apports, where something
Come,
from
what?
the
What?
spirit.
Like
Well, we get stones as the common thing, and when they come down, you can't touch them. They're hot. You have to let them cool down for you and pick them up. One day we had a group of people, and everyone wants to see an apport come down, and you walk around the forest, nothing. All of a sudden, a stone come down, and two guys are arguing over who's going to have the stone. So
a stone physically comes
I
down.
know it, yeah. And then the stone split in half, so they had a stone each. The two guys arguing over who's going to have the stone, and it split in half, so they had a stone each.
And what's this stone? What is it?
I've got loads of them. These are ports. Some of the people I've sat in circle with, and bearing in mind I'm used to sitting in a circle, just your normal circle. I have sat in circles. Have you ever heard of the skull experiment? Yeah. Well, I've sat with some of their group, right? And when I leave here this weekend, we're going to Scarborough, and two of that group are in Scarborough. I'm going to get some healing done on my back.
It must be ancient now, the skull experiment people.
Yeah, the
must be all quite old now.
Yeah, but these people used to stay with them. That wasn't just the group you see on TV.
Oh, okay.
They had people stay with them. They lived in Spain. The guy, Robin, has died now. Yeah, but I was so shocked at what I see in that room. My missus with me. I shook hands with someone with 3 fingers. And what the fuck's that all about? My missus, who's here, she's there actually. She's a medium. 30 years been doing mediumship. Never sat in a circle like this. Something invisible picked her up, sat in my lap, and a chair floats off, as it does. Don't ask me why, but you're
Is
guided.
this caught on camera or anything?
No, they can't. You know, you have to do it. That's you have to. Yeah, the darkness. But what I mean is, you get apports and all sorts. What we're dealing with, I don't honestly know. What I do know is, you find yourself meeting people you should meet. All along your way, you meet these people. Think, wow. We've got another lady that was met in the last couple of years. She's doing healing, and people started levitating. That's the second one. They've contacted me, because of ETs. They've been doing Reiki for years, and all of a sudden, these strange things happen. They've had an encounter with an alien or an ET, whatever you call it. All of a sudden, they've been told their healing is going to change. They've been upgraded.
So aliens for you are helpful in your experience?
In my experience, yeah, I've had some big. I'm in several books on the encounters I've had in the forest. I've got an alien chip in my leg. Don't ask me how I got it there. But my brother's got one in his shoulder. And that's in Rendlesham Forest. That's documented. There's witnesses. Woof,
Can we contact you later and have a fuller talk?
Yeah, that's right. I'm on Facebook.
Yeah.
And actual fact, if you've got your phone, Google me.
Yeah.
You'll see a lot of stuff on it.
Thank you very much.
Derek, you've been fabulous.
But there's some really nice some
we'll
stuff
have to
out
talk
there.
again. We'll have to talk again on a longer show, a proper one. All
Definitely
right.
do that. We've
Brilliant.
got your card.
Very nice meeting you.
Brilliant.
Thank you for stopping by.
Yes, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you.
Here we are, we're at this UFO Expo event with my esteemed friend and colleague Theo. We've just been watching Nick Pope do a presentation, which was actually quite powerful, actually, I thought. Anyway, what's your initial viewpoint so far?
I like to be polite. I like to be out there. Do I really? So far, I'm underwhelmed.
There was no new revelation, though, was there? There was nothing new. It was just looking at the UFO thing from a different angle.
Yes. It was an interesting. I tell you what was interesting. I don't think it's been done before, and it's. Well, yes. I think what took me what caught my interest? What caught my interest was in Nick Pope having this idea of saying, look, let us pretend that we have made contact with aliens. What are the ramifications? Even during the presentation, Nick, I call him Nick, or Mr. Pope. Nick said, during the presentation, he said, with the constant argument between whether aliens exist or not, with the naysayers and the believers, well, he wanted to go past that to say, well, let's just assume that we've already made contact. What are the ramifications for us? And I don't think that's been done before. I've not thought of it like that before. And he sort of tweaked my interest. Well, no, piqued my interest. Where he piqued my interest was when he said, if he had one question to ask an alien, what would that question be? And he gave a fantastic answer himself when he said he would ask the alien, what is the most intelligent thing that I can ask you? That's almost like when you meet a genie and the genie gives you one wish, and then you wish for 1,000 more wishes,
yeah, of course.
Something like that.
The thing that got me was, it's more a philosophical question, isn't it? It's like we're sort of debating at the moment whether there is aliens or not, although it seems to be coming more and more that there are. But how is that disclosure going to affect us as a race? Will they share their information? Will we even be able to understand it? And he raised that good point. Because there's various means of being, contact. First off, do we hear signal? And that's all it is. Or is there actual physical contact where they come and visit us? These are all questions that haven't been revealed. Well, we haven't got answers yet as to how, but he's surmising what if, how we would deal with these encounters if they manifest, how they manifest, and what our response will be. Who will respond for the human race, for instance? Who's dictated that? Who has a say, who doesn't have a say? And we're not ready, I believe. And I think, from my point of view, after listening to Nick Pope, it is more a case of not disclosing if there are aliens than disclosing it. I've actually turned my viewpoint, whereas before I felt we should know, we have a right to know. But after listening to Nick Pope, and he's raised all those philosophical questions, clearly to me anyway, we're not ready as a species. We have discord and we have arguments amongst ourselves. How can we be unified to deal with an external civilization? It will cause us more problems if we know the truth. And you actually said it to me at the beginning, we're not ready to handle the truth. And that could be the reason.
I was actually quoting a famous
film, wasn't it?
It was a film, Apoplexy. No, sorry, it was something else.
That was Jack Nicholson in a courtroom, wasn't it? Yeah.
You can't handle it.
You can't handle it.
Okay, so I'm not. Well, Nick, see, you say that, but at the same time, Nick himself addressed the issue when he said, however, now I forget who he himself, who Nick was quoting. He said, however, it is possible that once we know we are not alone, we must start seeing ourselves as members of the human race and not as Africans and Europeans. It might actually bring us together because it will then be this kind of us and them.
Yeah.
And that way it could actually create a unison that's currently missing. It seems silly to argue about, I'm just going to pick on these people because it's famous. It seems silly to argue about who owns Jerusalem when we are faced with someone who might be saying, you don't own anything. No one here on the planet owns anything.
Indeed.
So at that point, I think we come together and we say, wow, we've got bigger problems than our petty issues. And there we go.
I think, therefore, if we do discover that there are alien civilizations out there, and we know firm up well that there are, I think it'd be safer for us as a human race not to encounter them. It would be better that we discover that they exist, so we hear a signal or something has come from millions of miles away, and we manage to interpret it and genuinely know that there's a civilization out there, but they don't contact us and reveal everything to us, because I don't know, from what Nick Pope said in that session, I think it will be detrimental to us. We're not growing as a species. As Theo has said, I think it will unite us as a species, because we know we are not alone in the universe. But if we get given everything, I don't think that's good for us either, because we would then not go through the growing pains and discover the things ourselves. But it may inspire us to strive further and try and reach out to them, unite as a species, and try and discover more. So push us on rather than giving us all the answers straight away.
Well, what worries me is that you've taken two opposite positions in the space of 3 minutes.
Go on.
First of all, you've said that you don't think we should have a disclosure.
Only if they come on our planet, then no. That's something now that if they've come onto our planet and they've already contacted authorities, and the authorities have found out about them, and the authorities are not telling us, I think that should remain. They shouldn't tell us. But if we haven't got to that point, but we're picking up a signal externally, so there's no chance of them coming yet, then just that itself is enough to strive us on and move us forward. That's my view. My clouded thoughts at the minute, because my head's all over the place after this, if I'm honest. So I'm still taking it all in.
Well, I don't know who has a right to not tell us something that concerns the entire human race. Who has the right to keep that from the human race? This goes back to our fundamental argument and differences between what each of us has a right to do within our society. I'm very much more like a libertarian, but I make all my decisions. I'm an adult.
There is a Wookiee walking past Tyre behind him just now. A Wookiee just passed. Sorry to take you at your stride. I had to mention it as it came through the camera.
Yes, I think so. We have a right to know. You're messing with my human rights. That's the problem. And I have faith in humanity. At the same time as I largely denigrate mankind.
You do on many occasions, yes.
At the same time as I denigrate mankind, I denigrate them for failing to achieve what I believe is their potential. So I believe in the potential of mankind. And our potential is that, and I believe that if we had this revelation, what's it called? Not a revelation, it was disclosure. If we had a disclosure, I believe that we would actually come together and grow past that discussion. That's my belief system. You can ask me, because one of my things in life is, what's your plan B? And you might want to know, you might correctly ask, well, Theo, what's your plan B if we don't handle it properly? And that's where it fails, because I don't have a plan B.
I did like what Nick Pope said though. He said, what's our planet B? Because we only have one planet, and this is planet A, which is us. And to survive as a species, we really do need to venture out in the cosmos and try and discover ways of expanding. Now granted, we could expand to other planets in our solar system, but if we want longevity, we need to even go beyond that, because
longevity is
we're talking billions of years anyway.
Because it's not the sun. Tomorrow.
No.
So I don't think we should worry about that. It's not going to be anyone's problem right now. Okay?
But it's an interesting thought of being.
I challenge that, and I think we're going to have a debate. I believe it's in our law and if it isn't, we should log it. Future topic. That, yeah, read it. Actually, why should the human race survive? What for?
Why?
Why? It's a serious question. I'm not seriously. Why is it important for us to survive? If you think about us becoming extinct, actually, from the point of view of planet Earth, wouldn't that be better for planet Earth?
Yeah, but we're thinking selfishly for ourselves. We don't want to die.
So it's selfish. It's selfish. Actually, why should we strive? I mean, wouldn't the best thing for the planet be for us to quietly go into the night?
No, because I'm one who wants to live, want my offspring to live. I want humanity to move forward. Because let's be honest, yes, we have failings, but we're all right as a species.
Well, that's a very selfish one. Isn't it?
Well, but yeah, it is.
Well, if aliens came, maybe they would come to the conclusion that I've just
Postulated.
I've just postulated, and they might think, do you know what? For the sake of the planet, we're going to exterminate humanity. I believe that was actually the plot of the film, wasn't it? The one with Nicolas Cage.
The knowing.
The
knowing, yes.
Knowing, when everyone just decided, you know what, we've had it in humans.
It's a spoiler there. Watch the film.
Oh, another one, the remake too. There was another one that was made in 1950 something, and then Tom Cruise made it again.
What, the War of the Worlds?
No, when the alien came and I don't know, it was Tom Cruise. The alien came along and he was going to destroy the world, but Tom Cruise and some woman convinced him, no, we are humans and we can improve.
In Oblivion. Okay. We'll discuss that another time. I'm mindful of the time. We need to head off. We will be back again and do a subsequent section. We're having to do these in bite-sized pieces for now, but keep tuning in. There'll be more, and we'll see you a bit later.
What have we just seen?
We just saw someone. What's his name?
Daniel Sims?
No, is that his name?
I think his name was Daniel Sims. Or Derek Sims.
The alien hunter calls himself.
Yeah, alien hunter.
The alien hunter. It's a very dramatic name, and I was kind of hoping for a very dramatic speech.
Well, he did.
What I got was a speech that was very, and I don't mean this in an insulting way, it was very American. And there's no way of saying that without being insulting. It's just one of those things. It's very American. It was very gung-ho, very, whoa, you know, we're going to take on the aliens and win, yoo-hoo, kind of thing. But it was really light on evidential, on evidence. It was light on evidence. There's a lot of presentation about theory of why this thing happened. Why? So anyway, what was this about? It was focused mainly on alien abductions and the artifacts left behind in abductees, implants.
Yeah.
And he said he said something that I didn't fully understand. He said aliens are implants.
Yeah.
Well, how are aliens implants? Did you understand that? Because I didn't.
I didn't quite understand that, but I think what he was trying to say that they are humanoid. They're not biological entities themselves. They are manufactured to come to us and gather us and implant us and manage us and all that sort of thing. So they themselves are not the aliens. They are the alien creations, so to speak, who then come to us. The real aliens don't make a visit. They're away. So because there was one example that he quoted where there was a lady who tried to scratch one of them and
Yes.
did, and took its eye off, and behind the eye was some mechanism, so it wasn't a real eye. You know, your classic greys where they're all grey with a big slanty black eyes. She actually took one off, and behind there was some what looked like electronics or something. So even though we think they're the aliens, they may not be. And that's his claim. And they implant us with different things, and some of the things they implant us with are biological, some are non-biological, but then there's mixtures of the two, which was unusual. But I did like his approach, because he says he wears 7 hats of how to investigate somebody, and you know, the first hat is the one you don't want to use because it's the one you just believe face value what's been said, and then his second hat is a cop hat, so he interrogates. Then he's a science hat, then it was a philosophical hat, and all different hats that he has to approach an alleged victim or an alleged abductee to find out whether what they're saying is indeed true.
Well, he talks a good talk, but I'm not sure he applies his own standards. For example, someone tells you that they ripped off someone's eye. Did you keep the eye? No, because I assume the aliens took the eye. So it basically boils down to we have to believe what this woman
It's said, yeah,
says.
exactly.
I wouldn't actually even present that as evidence. That is.
Again, it was weak on evidence. It was almost like, I don't know, how can I put it? A lot of these talks here, to me, appear very high level, superficial, so that if you want to know more, you buy their book, you buy their course, you buy their DVD, whatever it happens to be, which may go into more detail, rather than the speech itself. It's just quite high level. They don't present a lot of detail as to where all their evidence is based. It's more superficial, and let's be honest, they're not the best presenters, you know, in terms of their delivery, their application, etc. I mean, we're maybe doing it from a biased point of view because we're Toastmasters and that's what we're taught how to present. So they're not the best at presenting, and they're not the best at providing a summary in a manner that's good for the public. What would make more sense is if they because they put loads of material in, if you notice, and it's just skirting on the surface of it all. There's no substance behind it. What would be better presented is if they got rid of most of it, just present us with 3. That'll do, but go into more detail in each one. That's enough. That will cover an hour that they're allotted, and you come away with, wow, I learned 3 things there, but deep down, where the evidence was, what they did to discover.
Corroborate it.
Yeah, corroborate. So that you've got
Validate
substance.
what they're looking at.
Rather than lots of little stories, and they're just, you know, you're just touching on them, and you're not going into any detail. So you're left feeling short, and that doesn't cover it. That doesn't cut the mustard, if you understand that term. And that's how I felt anyway.
He was talking about his daughter-in-law and how she had this
She'd
implant.
been abducted, yeah.
And
it
how she had
was,
this implant, and
they
something
had
had been
an-
removed from the back of her ear or something.
yeah.
And as soon as I saw it, I said, Brazil. There's a worm that looks like that from Brazil. When you bring it out of the human body, that's exactly what it looks like. So
It's not
I would
alien.
have liked him to say, if the TNT TalkShow was handling the investigation, we would have taken that to a zoologist
Yeah, it's like, what
for
is
the
this?
zoologist to say, I've never seen this before, and then we would say, well, isn't that the Brazilian worm that?
Yeah,
that-
blah, blah,
and then the zoologist would say, no, it's not that because
Yeah, because
of blah
it
blah
is,
blah.
yeah, exactly.
And so we go, well, in that case, what we have here is a genuine
Yeah.
mystery. And I don't think we go as far as say it's an alien. We'll say, well, we can't explain what it is, so that's weird. And that's a sort of level of evidence that I'd expect from somebody who's an international star. Is in movies.
Yeah, all he did was show us a video of it, which was interesting because you can see it, but then it never went to explain, well, what is that?
Well, what is it? And what happened to it?
Yeah, what happened?
And who did you show it to?
Yeah.
And who you know, what?
Indeed, that's the problem I have. It's because then it went on to another thing
Yes.
and didn't finish that off. It's like, well, I want to know what the answer is.
Yes.
Maybe it's us because we ask the questions, we're curious, we want an answer. But to me, that wasn't enough. It needed more substance, and this is what happened with the previous speaker.
And when he showed us this machine that apparently he's created, he's invented, a machine that
can detect,
that actually lit up the woman's an abductee's throat, a female abductee's throat, and in real time you can see the head, the spine, the neck
those
moving back and
muscles,
forth. You think, well, if that's not if it is X-ray, they're dosing that woman with tremendous amounts of X-rays, which can't be healthy.
No.
And if it isn't X-ray, what the heck is it? What technology is that? He didn't explain. Now, I'm not saying you should give us his secrets of his maybe patented device or whatever, but you do have to try to explain what we're looking at.
What were we looking at?
How did you capture this information? And since you can see the implant, did you take it out? And did you send it somewhere?
Yeah,
take it somewhere to have it checked.
It just showed us this video of this neck moving. Now, you're right. Normally, X-rays are just static pictures.
Yes.
How have we got
because you have to stay still.
Yeah, you have to stay still.
You know how they always tell you, don't move. We're about to take the X-ray.
Absolutely.
How are you getting moving pictures?
I don't know. I've never seen.
He hasn't explained anything. Just all we know is that it costs £600. I'm going to pay £600 or something. I don't know how the damn thing works.
Well, the thing was
$600.
But the thing was, $600 is not a lot for that sort of quality. Was it a sound system that picked it up? That was so you it's like like a pregnant woman goes for that like a sonar or whatever.
Sonogram,
whatever. Yeah. Was it similar to that instead of an X-ray? I don't know.
No, it was too clear because you can see what the baby looks like.
Yeah,
the ultrasonic.
But that was so clear on the neck. It just seemed a bit too good for me, to be honest.
That's the problem, isn't it? And that's one of the things that you go, well, you need to explain what we're looking at and how we're getting this fidelity. How we're getting this fidelity. But I mean, for me, the final nail in the coffin is this: what happened to all these artifacts that they pulled out? Because Penn and Teller, the famous magicians, they debunked these implants, and they tried to show that every implant can actually, whatever is removed from the human body, can be a cyst or something that
can be explained logically.
Can be explained logically.
Yeah.
And the reason they can do that is because they get sent for testing in advanced laboratories around the United States. Now, there was only one they couldn't explain. I mean, that one is interesting, and that's the sort of thing you're looking for. But if you're not sending them anywhere, and you're just saying the mere fact that there's this weird thing in the human body is proof, it isn't.
It's not proof. It's not proof.
It's not proof at all.
Because you need to explain where does it originate from. How did it get there, and what is it?
What is it?
Yeah,
one of them was
the
actual. Yeah. The one who spoke about the father who died, and they did an autopsy, and they remember.
On his calf.
That actually looked like flesh.
Yeah, we don't know what it was. Just because you show it doesn't explain what it is. It could be just a lump of gristle in his leg.
Exactly. So it was very. I think that's an extremely weak. Wasn't as weak as the woman, but it wasn't in Melissa, wasn't it? Wasn't as weak as Melissa's, but it was pretty blooming. It was pretty blooming weak.
He started off well. I mean, I liked what he said. I thought, that's good because
I was expecting something.
Some real analyticals, and maybe as part of his way of using forensics and the way he does it, and he worked for the CIA, he would show that some people came to him and he would debunk them. That would show more credibility because at least he's debunked them using his steps. But there was none of that, and I was expecting that and didn't see it. So I don't know. I wasn't convinced.
And yet, if you can turn the camera, we can see just how big a crowd is surrounding him.
I don't know if you can see that. If you can see it, Is it looking
Yeah,
at him?
it's there in the background.
Yeah, in the background.
In the back over there.
You can
over
actually
Tony's
see,
shoulder.
Yeah, over my shoulder.
Yeah.
In the background, you should be able to see that that's a crowd.
And that's even a smaller crowd than
Yeah,
it was initially.
It was bigger
so some
than
people are actually lapping this
So
up.
I'll come back. Let me just make sure that that is sat now back and can get us both in. I'll just double check that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yes, I think the thing is, it seems to me as if in this exhibition, what we've seen today is that people are preaching to the converted. So they're not trying very hard.
Yeah.
Because there's very little skepticism.
I'm not seeing or detecting any skepticism.
No.
But to make this become mainstream, you have to be skeptical because you have to get the right answers and you have to be convinced that the evidence is solid in order to change people's views. And at the minute, there's some things that I'm believing, but some things no. I'm now thinking no. It's not enough. There's not enough here. So interesting. Okay, I think we're done for this next segment, and we'll catch you again very soon. Bye for now.
Bye.
Okay, we're back again to do another little session here. We've just been listening to a lady called Melissa Titel, who's actually the producer of many of the films that we've seen on UFOs, alien encounters, etc. And she's quite able in her, I don't know how to put it, she's got views of her own in order, I don't know what to say actually.
Tony is trying to be polite.
I'm trying to be polite.
So this is a well-known,
she's a producer,
she's
director,
a producer,
she's very profound.
She's produced, I believe, I saw like 6 or 7 different films.
Probably more than that even. I think there's about 12 on that list. They're quite famous films that she has produced.
Quite famous films that
absolutely.
And she's worked with some important people in the UFO field. And what Tony is struggling to do is to remain polite when he describes this talk that we've just heard. Now, as our audience knows by now, Tayo is more frank than polite. I'm just straightforward.
But before he says what he says, I'm going to clarify. She's obviously got some interesting points, but maybe her delivery of those points isn't clear enough. So it sounded a bit out there, but that's as far as I'm going to leave it. Tayo, if you want to...
She was talking to us about, we'll explain in a second what she was talking to us about. Now, you know that I'm frank, okay? I don't even agree with even what Tony has just said. What we were exposed to just now was about a lot of bollocks, to be honest, okay? It just didn't make any freaking sense whatsoever. She says, it's as if she came across this new word, and you know how people become obsessed with the word. She was telling us about dodecahedrons. And a
dodecahedron.
A dodecahedron is a 12-sided object. And she began by saying that the universe has a dodecahedral shape. And straight away, someone like me, I'm like, well, what do you mean? What does that mean? What shape? Space-time? The objects in it, like stars and galaxies, and what? You can't just say the universe has a dodecahedral shape and leave it at that. You got to explain what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then she said, this was discovered by vibrations. What vibrations? What's vibrating? Vibrations, and who discovered it? How does she know?
It was lacking in substance. No explanation. Who accredited to this? What evidence did they provide for this claim, this theory, and what was the purpose of that? And it was just a throwaway statement. And we, hello, yes. come into shot. You might as well come into shot here. We've got a
We've got
stormtrooper with us.
stormtrooper.
Please come into the picture. Look, we're recording our show, and we have a stormtrooper with us. Hello, say hello.
Hello there, stormtrooper.
Yes, good afternoon. Yes, for our listening audience out there who aren't watching this, we just had a stormtrooper on with us. But hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, we were saying that. So the point is, going back to Melissa, there was a lack of substance, meat on the bone. It's all well making these soundbite claims and coming forward with these, but you've got to provide the substance. You've got to provide where they've come from, what evidence is there. You've got to provide a bit more meaningful information if you want your points to be taken on board as serious points. And it was just too simple, the explanation. That's in my view.
For example, what you were saying is that there's a running thread through ancient civilizations, aliens, Stonehenge, Atlantis, reincarnation. I mean, you just take
covered
everything
a multitude
and you
of
just
things.
throw everything in there and then claim that it's got something to do with the number 12. And that claim, even if it's, well, I was going to say even if it's true, but it's obviously not true that.
Well, we can't say that either.
No, we can say that because the shape of the universe is not based.
Well,
there is no shape to the universe.
Unless she could provide more information, and there was sadly a lack of that information. It was explained, and you thought, "Oh, sounds interesting," and then she went on to another bit of information. It was like, well, you haven't finished off what you just claimed. Give us some more meat on the bone. If you're coming out with something as profound as that, you've got to back it up. And that was sadly the thing that was missing for me. It was a interesting topic, interesting theory, but more substance is needed, more data to corroborate. I can't even say the word. Corroborate what she was trying to say. So I'm not dismissing her out of hand, but I am a bit disappointed that there wasn't more in there to actually fill that out.
This is what makes the TNT talk show such a great show, because Tony and I are so diametrically opposite. I dismiss it completely out of hand. It's ludicrous. The reason it's, like I'm trying to say, the reason it's ludicrous is that what has reincarnation, for example, what has that got to do with the number 12?
There was no explanation of that.
And that number 12, she said that you can inject a microbe, a 12-sided microbe, into humans and get an autoimmune response. Yeah, you've just injected a microbe into it. It doesn't matter what the hell the shape of the damn thing is. You're going to get an autoimmune response. It's not special.
Yeah, exactly. It was too many links to too many things without
unsubstantiated links, unsubstantiated,
and trying to make the connection to make it fit her narrative, and there wasn't enough real data.
And even if
to
it
back
fit,
it up.
I wouldn't have been impressed. Even if the whole thing fit, it's going to still be, so what? This is a UFO. This is a UFO conference. What has it got to do? What has it got to do with anything? If it's something to do with 12, and then.
But she did try and bring in the UFO element into it. So it's almost like she was shoehorning a square into a round peg, because all this other stuff wasn't really linked to UFOs, but then she brought that in loosely as well, didn't she? There wasn't really a
And then she
connection.
she showed us an image of the globe with some drawings on it, and claimed that it was a
dodecahedron.
A dodecahedron, and that some of these, and all these, the nodes,
the points where they were.
The nodes, the points were all points on this dodecahedron. Problem being, of course, that many of these points were deep in the middle of the ocean, far away from anything. So, I mean, one of them, I believe, was in the Mariana Trench. I mean, what the hell? What the hell is down there?
Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing down there, man.
Don't know. It doesn't make sense. See, that was quite an interesting idea, to be fair, because if that was true and you could map it on the Earth and it then pointed to strategic historical locations, then she's got a good case there. You think, now that needs further study. Where does this come from? Is there a mapping somewhere that shows that more clearly in all around the Earth? And then that would then lead to, if there was one on the Mariana Trench, we need to go down there and have a look, because all these other places match up, so there's one there that needs looking at. But there wasn't enough explained there whether that was true or not. It was just almost glossed over. So it made a great soundbite, but not enough substance to warrant, oh yeah, that looks great, let's look more into it. She then skirted over it and went on to something else. And that's my gripe. It wasn't enough real substance that followed it through. Now, if she had a white paper and said, by the way, everything I'm talking about here, I've got a white paper that accompanies this presentation, you can download it at this site, that gives all the details that you need. Whoopie-doos! I'll be happy with that, because then I'd want to download it and have a look and see if this information corroborated this high-level talk. But unfortunately, it didn't appear to be the case.
And then what took me aback is that she said these are all ancient sites, and then she mentioned an oil well.
Yes.
A modern oil well.
In Russia.
In Russia. So...
What?
Anyway, at that point, I was just, let's just leave.
Yeah,
man.
well, I think we got our fill of that. So, yeah. So this was a short and sweet recap of that presentation. It was interesting to begin with, but then it literally went off on one, and unfortunately, as far as the TNT talk show is concerned, there's a bit too out there. So we will be back a bit later with another little piece, so I hope you're enjoying this bite-sized show for now. We'll see you a bit later on. Bye for now.
Bye.
Hello, Nick. Hi, I'm Tony from the half of the TNT talk show.
Oh, right. Hi.
And I just wanted to ask you a question because we saw you speak earlier. And basically one question. That was it. You've actually convinced me that we're not ready as a species to even know the answers. So if we were to get disclosure, I don't think we're ready as a race. Do you believe that wholeheartedly, or do you not? Do you think I'm wrong in thinking that assumption?
I think there are problems. A few years ago I thought we were ready, but now, after the COVID experience, I'm not so sure, because with COVID, what we saw was that something that was predicted, we had government contingency plans for global pandemics, and yet what happened, the whole issue got completely politicized, and society had a collective meltdown, screaming at each other over lockdowns, vaccines, masks, and there was hysteria and panic. I mean, we've seen the videos, we've seen it happen, people screaming at each other, being escorted off aircraft and things. Well, if that happens for a global pandemic, which was hardly a surprise, what's going to happen if we encounter an extraterrestrial species, particularly if there's a dark side to it?
What's the likelihood of it being a dark side?
I think it's 50-50. I mean, we may be lucky and dodge the bullet, or there may be something really malevolent out there. I can't really call it, but you could say, frankly, it's probably going to be one or the other.
Okay. Is it the likelihood, I mean, if we took our shoes, what we're like with animals and on our planet and other species, we have a few of us who are benevolent, and there's obviously a few that are not. So with species external to us, if they have higher technologies, do you think it would generally align to benevolence, or would they treat us as pets, or along those lines?
Well, I think there's a spectrum. When we look at human behaviors, what we see, for example, in relation to animals, we see that some people care deeply about animals and love them and love their pets and become veterinary surgeons and run rescue facilities, and yet some people seem, for whatever reason, to get off on torturing animals
which is
and
not
mistreating them and abusing them. And I think, you could say that we see the range of human behaviors from genuinely good to terrifyingly evil. We see people going into burning buildings to rescue people, and sometimes because it's their job, but sometimes a passerby or something will try and rescue someone putting their own life at risk. And yet we've had the Holocaust and the killing fields of Cambodia. So if we look at that, that's the only model we have. We are likely to find, I think, it's a good assumption, that there's going to be a range of behaviors and agendas with other civilizations. Some will be high-minded, altruistic, benevolent beings. Others may be the most terrifying evil. It's just a question of which finds us first.
Indeed. Oh gosh, it's gone off again. I mean, we'll carry on like this. You've been great. Do you feel that it's actually kept within one group in terms of, if we have met aliens, is it just the Americans, or do we have other countries that have managed to, get hold of information from alien beings and keep it secret? It's not just the Americans, is it?
Many countries have UFO programs. We know China has a program, we know Russia has a program, but we don't know, or at least I don't know, what they have managed to find out about all this. So maybe they have verified an extraterrestrial presence, and maybe they have hardware. People talk about crashed UFOs. I don't know how much of that is true. At the moment, we're hearing more from the United States, but only because the United States is maybe a more open and free country than, say, Russia and China, where they are not holding public hearings about it, of course, because that's not what they do.
No, indeed. But there was I can't remember the year, there was a story a while back about Russian MiG fighters engaging some sort of alien craft and actually bringing it down. So if that were true, does that mean if there are any extraterrestrials, they're wary of us humans, or not? Would you think that works that way?
I think that knowing that human beings have atomic weapons and have used them in anger might make any extraterrestrial civilizations a little wary of us. However, I come back to the point that any civilization capable of visiting us has technology orders of magnitude above anything we have. We're nowhere near, even though we have a space program, we're nowhere near interstellar travel. At the farthest we've gone with our probes, it would take 75,000 years to reach the nearest star. So frankly, we wouldn't have much of a chance against that kind of technology.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, one final question, thank you for your time, is do you believe we will get disclosure in the next couple of years even, or is it something that it will be tarnished? I think, as you said in your speech earlier, that there's certain people in government are willing to poo-poo the whole thing and try and darken the Senate and the House of Representatives looking more deeper into it. Do you feel that that's actually going to be an issue?
I am well aware that at the moment there is a kind of factional dogfight going on within the US government, the military, the intelligence community. There's a believer faction and there's a skeptic faction. And there will always be people in the system who will deny, downplay, debunk, and that will continue. So there's a bit of a struggle going on, a struggle for narrative control, a struggle for the power to make the decisions over which way this is going to go. But ultimately, the question of will we get disclosure does depend on what there is to disclose. And, that is still, for all the talk, for all the testimony, it's still an unknown.
So we don't have enough evidence, really, or maybe there isn't enough out there to actually disclose anything.
Well, the way I see it is that we have smoke, but we don't have a smoking gun quite yet.
I see.
But we're working on it. I say, we, Congress is working to try and validate some of the sworn testimony Congress is trying to verify some of the sworn testimony we have from whistleblowers like David Grush, who is who he says he is.
Yes, he is.
He served on the UAP task force, absolutely. But that is still a process that's going on.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for your time, Nick. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
How are you?
How you doing?
Fine, thank you very much.
Good to see you.
Hello.
Thank you very much. This is
I'm Tony.
Tony.
Nice to meet you too.
Glad to meet you, sir.
We are part of a TNT talk show, and just wanted to ask you a couple of questions. We do
Certainly.
We do a conspiracy show, and
Okay.
we liked what you said today as well. Yeah, we've got a couple of questions just
If you
about the
wouldn't mind,
implants.
just about, we watched your presentation, very interesting, thank you very much. About the implants, during the presentation I didn't hear what you did to validate that they weren't natural objects.
Oh, thank you. Well, I was instructed by the director of this. He said, these are very informed audience. I said, well, good, then they've already heard some of the other stuff I've done. But since your audience hasn't, or the question is here, the answer is, how do we verify that? Well, first of all, we verify that when most people come to me and say, I have an implant, and half a dozen have here.
Really?
I say,
Today?
I don't think so.
You've had some today
Well,
as well.
of course.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And I listened to the story, and one lady, I looked at her and had some of the tech equipment over here, and I said, I don't think that you're having an implant. Why not? Well, because implants are extremely rare. I said, I discovered it in 1960. I presented it to 250 surgeons and doctors at John Muir Medical Hospital in 1994 before we ever did any surgeries. And I predicted 5 things about the implants, if they were alien, would be true. I told the doctors there, who were all skeptical, if I'm wrong, here's the way to come after me. First surgery, all of those things were true. Every one of them were true. How did I know that? Because in my own experience in 1960, at age 12, I heard and saw and experienced everything they were doing. So the big question is, how does one know, how do you validate this? First thing I told every one of these people, and only one of them might have had an implant. Now, first the question I asked her was, I want you to go get me an x-ray. She said no.
Oh yes, you mentioned this.
Yeah.
This is
I
your
said,
app.
I
You'll
want
see
you
the
to go
download
get
the
an
app.
x-ray immediately. I don't want to.
Did she say
Now
why?
you're here talking to me about an implant that you think you have, and you don't want me to know. The app is hide, destroy, or ignore your evidence. That's consistent anywhere in the world. Anywhere I'll go to Istanbul, Turkey next, and I promise you that will occur over and over. But regardless, if they get an X-ray, I want to see medical evidence. I don't care about your story. That's okay, and I'll read people real well. I teach how to determine where people are lying the truth just by watching them. I mean, this is part of my police work and CIA and all that kind of stuff. But the fact is that still we need medical evidence. The medical hat comes on. X-rays, CAT scan, MRI. I don't want to do that. Do it anyway. Okay. But the point is, I have to have that because the medical people, our medical people don't do anything, won't do anything until I, number one, say it's thus saith, it's an implant, or I think that it is. They're not going to do anything, and they're especially not going to do anything if there's no medical evidence. And I'm not going to let you get anywhere near them because they don't know what to do. I do. I tell them how to cut, what to do, and how to do it. Why? Because I know exactly what I'm looking for. They don't. They're just surgeons. That's all. They just taught them what they understand. They're cutting on something they don't understand. So they have to follow this advice.
Do you find that a lot of the surgeons, or have you got a team now that do the surgeries for you? You don't go to any surgery?
We normally have doctors that work with us. Some pass, some get older, some retire, and some have. And so we have to get new doctors. But even then, I explained to them that here are the rules. As I did in India. Last surgery we did was in India. And I told the individual there, I said, the then director of the hospital and the surgeon, I'm a private investigator in Houston, Texas. we found an anomalous object. We don't know what it means. We're just looking at this stuff. Never said the word alien, never any of this. Here's what I want you to do. And if you're agreed to this and following my instructions, we can do this. We'll pay you for your time and so on. If not, then I'll find another doctor.
Are you finding an uptake?
Money.
Is it the same as when you started, or is there an uptake now as far as you're concerned with the number of abductees? Or is it trailing off? Is it the same? Is it
I think a good question. Really good question. I hear this all the time. People tell me, oh, it'll be somebody in here, like a group like this. They have book sales are not doing that well, or whatever. Alien abductions, it's going downhill. The aliens quit. Business is good in Texas. Where do you get that information? The aliens call you and tell you that? No, I was just it was just my thinking because I hadn't had that many cases. It's because you're probably not that good an investigator to begin with. So, okay, I have 2,000 cases worldwide. I spoke to tens of thousands of people in the last 50 years. I think I know what I'm doing. I have 3 years in Central Intelligence Agency in the trade craft, and I'm a private investigator for 40 years, been a senior military police officer, and I kind of know what I'm doing. I can hunt aliens, and I know where they're at. I know how to find them. I know what they do. I've done this for a long time.
Final question. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Final question. Your daughter-in-law. What was that in her hand? That artifact in her hand? Did you have it looked at?
The object. There was an object.
In her ear.
Oh, okay, in the ear.
That
That was a simulation. It's an actual. It's called a horsehair. That was a simulation. That was a real horsehair, but I was using that as an illustration because it looked like the color and it acted just like it.
Okay.
But it wasn't it. Whatever it was, looked like that, functioned like that. They pulled it out of her ear at my home, and it looked like that, and it was alive. Freaked her completely. When I came home, got in the front door, her ear was bleeding. She was wandering around incoherent, and her blood trailing out of her ear down her neck.
Did you get it analysed to find out?
Well, we never got it. They took it. That's why they were there. Two. You ready? I don't know if your audience is ready for the answer.
Okay.
Two individuals that are not aliens, and are not human. Okay.
That's intriguing.
The alien.
Have you got a book or something that explains any of this?
The aliens that we see today, there are 7 flavors. The little gray, the big gray, and we even know the intelligence levels of these guys. The praying mantis, the reptile, the Nordic, and the Bigfoot. We're all on the same team. They're models. They are not aliens from another world. Sorry.
They're models.
What is it? What does it mean? Well, if you go to the Chevrolet company, you'll see a Chevette over here.
Yeah.
That's the
model.
That's the gray, the small end.
Yeah.
You got a Corvette Stingray over there. That's the Nordic, you know.
Okay.
You're with me on that.
Yeah.
Okay, these are models. When I was 4 years old, when he came into my room, a little tiny guy, and he was not much bigger, I kept looking at him, and little kids don't look at things. You as a fine, refined gentleman, you would look at an alien, oh my God, there's an alien, I'm looking at all this. No, little kids like, where are your clothes? Where's your TT?
Oh, right, yeah.
Where's your belly button? I have one. Where's yours? I can't figure it out. So little kids, they notice things sometimes adults don't. And my point is that if what I'm telling you is true, what I saw when I was 4, I actually have some photographs of aliens. They don't have TT and they don't have belly button either.
Okay.
So regardless, if what I saw was true and accurate, if that's true, he's made, hatched, cloned, or manufactured. Because he didn't get here the way you and I did.
It's not gendered.
No, sir.
Right.
So the question one has to really ask, the big question, the big question is, who made that?
Yeah.
And some of the guys that came to get that red thing out of her ear, they're part and parcel of that.
I did say it was the last question, but I'm going to.
I thought he said it was the last question. Did you hear that? Am I imagining things? There's something wrong with me.
There are some people.
Love this guy.
There are some people who claim,
yes, sir,
that these are demons.
Nothing wrong with thinking about anything.
Because demons, like angels, are
Wow.
We had one of our abductees. She was crying. They said they're good. If I give you any more information, they're going to get my kids. Sweetie, you think they're not going to get your kids anyway? That's both of your children are abductees, just like you and your husband are. It's a veiled threat. They're going to do it anyway. You got to help me, and she's crying and all that. So I said, okay, I did. She tore the eye cover off on 2 different occasions. She took control of him with my assistance, all by herself in an abduction. What does that mean? Well, let's think about that for a moment. If he has to focus you to get to scare you or put you in whatever, focus you, then he's got you. What if you focus him before he focuses you? He's as vulnerable as you are. Want to know what she saw beneath the eye?
What is that? Electronics?
What is that?
Electronics, or do we not know?
It appears to be. He's biomechanical. Some of the beings are biomechanical, some of them are mechanical, some of them are not. Any question you ask about the implant, you can ask about the alien because it is the same. He is an implant.
Wow.
I've finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Do you have a book that...
or anything? Thank you
my
for your
luggage has
time.
been lost twice on this trip already.
Well, because the name...
All my books, everything, are all gone. They had to buy me clothes to wear tonight.
They've done a good job.
Please help these gentlemen. They're needing to know something about books.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you. Just for the benefit of our listening audience, Derrel did hold up a photo or a picture of somebody picking up and ripping the eye off an alien creature and seeing something behind it. Hence why you couldn't see that, and it ripped the eye and could see some sort of electronics or something behind the eye. So Derrel is saying that the creatures themselves are not aliens, they are created by something else.
Thank you for tuning in to this slightly different version of the TNT Talk Show. We will be back to normal on our subsequent show, but I hope you enjoyed this new format just for this episode. Okay, see you again soon. Bye for now.